Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this afternoon's guest moderator from New York Magazine and NPR's Fresh Air, David Edelstein, and today's guest, John Slattery.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming.
Hello.
And I want to thank you for this terrific movie, God's Pocket, and also for letting Don come back to work. That was really... and we'll talk about Mad Men after we talk a little bit about God's Pocket. It's fun. My friend Lisa Rossman, my colleague, was they were just reminiscing about Newton, Massachusetts, and I just realized it's so funny. I've seen you for so many years on stage and on screen playing wasps. You know, politicians and you know, wasp-rot like Roger Sterling and you're this, you know, guy from a big Irish Catholic family in the bad part of Newton.
Right.
So how did you get this sort of typecasting for a while of playing these wasp guys, and what does that feel like?
I don't know how, but you know, I mean, that's what Hollywood does. That you have some success in one area, and that's what you get. That's what they want you to do. People tend to surround themselves with someone that, you know, that's with as sure a thing as they can. So if they go, oh, that guy can play a politician, I saw him do it in something else. And if you know, you need to work. So, and if it's well written, and it's 2 or 3 similar sort of, you know, character types, then that's, you know, you can do yourself damage that way. It takes a little while to look up and see the bigger picture. You know, it took me a little while in the beginning to do that.
Did you feel like you were sort of sneaking in there under false pretenses, or was it just part of what you did?
I felt I was sneaking in under false pretenses in general, because no one in my family had ever done anything show business related or anything, you know, remotely resembling it. So when I offered a job years ago, initially I took whatever I got because I thought, well, I was just thrilled to be hired. So, you know, then it takes you a while. When you're young, you're a young actor, and you don't have a lot of choices. You know, you have to survive in New York City, which is it's more expensive now, but it wasn't cheap then, and so you have to work, and you don't have a lot of choice.
And you seem to be affiliated with projects that have a great deal of alcoholism in it. If you haven't seen God's Pocket, but many of the scenes are in a working class bar. I think it's fair to say it's an ugly, vicious, kind of sodden place, although it does have its warm humanitarian side. Pete Dexter, the novelist, obviously knows those places well from his time as a reporter, as a daily columnist for the Philadelphia Daily News. What is it about alcoholism and you that seem to, not personally, but that you seem to gravitate to projects like this?
I don't know about the alcohol. I think it's the humor that I gravitate toward. I mean, it might be a vicious place, and it might not be the most attractive place, but the humor is what struck me in this book and in these characters. And maybe the alcohol takes away some of the inhibitions and allows people to sort of succinctly put a point on what they want to say, including the character I play on the TV show. So maybe that's it, but it isn't really. I mean, again, it's coincidental. I have a certain sense of humor. I think the character I play on Mad Men has that. I mean, you know, after a while, the writers write to what you sort of give them. But this book, you know, when I read it a long time ago, it was that humor that I got, and despite the circumstances, it was the hope and the struggle of this guy Mickey Scarpato, who's played by Phil Hoffman, to do right by his wife and to take care of his friends, and that was what struck me. The optimism is in the midst of all that cynicism.
But it's funny, the movie is violent, it's bleak, I got to say it's crazy sick, but it's also hilarious. I mean, almost every line, you know, is like I was roaring, you know. First of all, the actors are so wonderful to watch, and you give them so much space. but also it's like every line can be twisted in order not only to show the tragedy of these people's lives, but the farce of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bedrock code of casual violence and mayhem that just happens. You know, there's a guy gets punched in the nose and it happens over there, and people just kind of look and continue what they're doing because it's the way it's the currency. If you don't get what you need, you have to be prepared to do something like that. Some guy has a gun, or some other guy will slap you around or hit you with a shovel or whatever it is. But that had to be believable to me in a bedrock sense and in an unsensational sense, so that it could spring into the absurd part of it. You know, I mean, the water keeps rising on this guy, and he's just trying to do the right thing, and he just can't do it, and it gets more and more absurd as it goes on. And the violence just had to be convincing at rest.
It really does have a kind of a farce structure because if you don't know, and you can tell us a little bit more about the plot, what sets it in motion is the killing under very peculiar circumstances of a very disturbed young man on a construction site. And in the course of trying to both cover it up and trying to get to the bottom of why it happened, it sets off mayhem. And when I say farce, I mean there literally is a dead body that's toted around and propped up in a meat truck and falls out. I don't want to give anything away, but it is almost like you're working with a very tight farce structure that comes out of this act of violence.
Yeah, I mean that has to be played straight, and you have to set up this kid, you know, who gets killed is the stepson of Phil's character Mickey, and he's not a nice guy, and he has to be painted as such in short order so that when he does in fact get, I won't say how he gets killed, but when he does get killed, the only person who cares about it is his mother. Everyone else is sort of, you know, the good riddance, which again allows it to be funny. I mean, if it was that heartbreaking, it's tricky. The tone of the book was tricky. When I read it, I thought, you know, it encompasses this hard scrabble world. These people really straight on trying to get what they want, but it is funny, and every one of them is funny in their own particular way, and every one of them is different from everyone else. John Turturro plays a guy named Arthur Bird Capizio who only dresses in yellow. He has these canary glasses he wears, and he drives a big yellow Cadillac, and yet he's not to be trifled with. You know, Mickey Scarpato, smiling Jack Moran, who's a funeral director who with a tendency to punch people, you know, when they're not looking. And they all live in this fishbowl of a community where they all know exactly who they're dealing with. There's a narration in the beginning. It's an article that Richard Jenkins' character writes in the local newspaper saying that they've all grown up together. No one leaves. They've all seen each other naked. They know who cheats at cards, who slaps their kids around, who they've stolen from each other. They've set each other's houses on fire. Then they've borrowed money from the people they stole it from, and you know so there's no way to bullshit anybody, even though they try. They're trying to get one over on someone else, and everyone can see through everyone else. So it's a very unique sensibility that was all conjured up in Pete Dexter's book, and why I wanted to make the movie in the first place.
Did you manage, you had actors coming in for a relatively short time. I know this was shot pretty quickly, right? Did you manage to kind of create a family out of the cast? And we can talk about specific cast members soon, but was that something you were comfortable doing, creating a kind of atmosphere where everyone could contribute?
Yeah, I mean, I hired these, you know, I waited for Phil to be free to do the movie. He liked the script. I wrote the script. It took me a long time to write it. The short version is I read the book about 10 years ago. I tried to get the rights. I was told they weren't available. I forgot about it. 5 years after that, someone reminded me of the book. So I called, and they said, oh, they're available again. So I wanted to outline the script because I had written a bad script in the interim, so I thought I don't want to take the time to do that. I outlined it. By the time I finished, it took me about a month. I called and said, okay, let's do it. And they said, oh, we made a mistake. The same people still own the rights. So I thought, well, if they've owned the rights for this long, it's been about 20-something years, I thought, well, maybe they're not going to make it if I don't make it. So I just kept writing it while I was doing other things. And it took me about 3 more years to get a draft that I was happy with, and just because I was busy I would sit in a trailer making a movie and do this instead of watch TV. And then I sent it to Phil Hoffman, and he said he liked the script. I offered him the part of Shelburne, the reporter that Richard Jenkins plays, and he said, I like the script, but I want to play Mickey, which took me about a minute to figure out what a good idea that was. And then it was a matter of scheduling. So once we figured out his schedule, then armed with that script, which is the Pete Dexter book, and Phil Hoffman, it took me, it literally, I think Richard Jenkins read it in about an hour and a half and called me back, and Turturro and Christina Hendricks was close by on the set of Mad Men, so she said yes, everyone wanted to work with Phil. And there are so few good, actors are so starved for good material that they all said yes like that, and it became about scheduling. But to answer your question, I hired all those people for them to do what they do. I didn't hire them so that I could tell them everything. I mean, Relance Accord, who shot the movie, is one of the great cinematographers. He's a friend of mine and claims I made a drunken bet with him that if I got Phil to star in the movie, he'd shoot it. Which I don't remember.
By the way, the movie looks extraordinary. The fashions are horrible, and the interiors have this kind of soupy yellow and green quality that they must have worked very hard to get.
Very hard. But the point is, I mean, the costumer, Donna Zakowska, did John Turturro's movie, which is out now, too. And she's a brilliant woman, and and I hired them all to contribute. The production designer who built the bar, which didn't exist. And I mean, that's why I hired them. So I don't know if it was about creating a family, because people are in and out and busy, and Turturro is in for a week, and people are in, so it was really an intensely focused 24-day shoot, where, I mean, you have to be open to the best idea in the room. I mean, I knew that I had limited experience as a director, but I know as an actor, if I want someone to give me something that's going to give me an idea. That's the best work. When I feel like, they make me think it's my idea. And if I could do that and encourage them to just sort of get them close and let them go, then that was the idea.
When you see the movie, one of the most heartbreaking things, obviously, is it's one of Philip Seymour Hoffman's great performances, which is, I almost wish it hadn't been. One thing that struck me about this performance is that he is playing the character. He's in kind of a stupor, kind of a melancholy stupor for the entire movie, and yet he's not one of these actors who generalizes. So he reacts to that combination of reacting to everything, every millisecond, every person in his orbit, showing all these fine shades within this general kind of slow, depressed affect, was something that I don't think any actor would have risked doing in quite that way.
He had a specific, again, I said I offered him this other part, and he said, I want to play that part, and then eventually we sat down, and I was surprised at how specific he was already talking about it. The scenes about his relationship with Jeannie and
Jeannie is his wife, played by Christina Hendricks.
Yeah. And why this character would stay in this place. He's a guy with very shallow roots. His father was a truck driver, and he's a truck driver, and he's married to this woman who had a son from a former marriage, and he's constantly being reminded, you're not, remember those girls from oh yeah, you're not from here. Everybody's always reminding him that he's not from here, or if you were here, you'd know why this is the way we do it. And you wonder, why is he fighting to get into this community that clearly doesn't want him? And then it takes him the whole movie to figure out that he doesn't want them either. But it's the humanity. It's this guy doing everything for his wife. There's a line in the book that he said, he knew that if he lost her, she'd be the last woman he ever got without paying for it. And he could see and Phil had a way of saying, this guy sort of sticks his head above the fray and knows his position. He knows that where he is. People think he's a tough guy and a made guy, or he's connected, and they're not sure. But he has that respect. He has that menace, and yet he's really not that guy. You know, he's trying to figure out where he is, and that all appealed to him, and it's all extremely specific. And yeah, I mean, he's just one of those actors that you just would watch him. He'd be deep emotionally into a scene, and then you'd see him remember where the camera was, and just shift everything so that the camera got everything he was doing. There wasn't a thing in that movie that he got that we didn't that isn't on film. And I mean, and then in the edit process, he was a producer on the film. He would say, "There's a better take. You know, there's a take at the end of this scene where the two of us are fighting. It's a little funnier." And you know, whatever, things get lost, and you dig through the takes. And sure enough, he was always right about that.
Richard Jenkins told me, I know that Philip Seymour Hoffman had a very complicated attitude toward his whole body, and his acting. He told me that he had sat through the movie several times, and he said it was one of the few movies he's made that he could sit through, that he thought he got it. He thought he nailed the character.
Yeah, yeah. We sat together and we screened it in Sundance for 1,200 people, and the two of us were not going to do that. Too nerve-wracking, you know. Especially being being in it and watching yourself for the first time with a big audience is one of the really disturbing experiences. Even if you're happy with it, it's distracting. You're trying to get over a thing. You're thinking about it, and then the next scene is, so you're not really in the movie. But he said, I mean, and we were sitting together, and we had a great time. He was very pleased with it, which makes me as a filmmaker and a friend feel good, because I'm not selling something that he wasn't that he didn't think had integrity, which meant everything to him. I mean, as an artist, you know, that's why everyone wanted to work with him. I mean, it wasn't just the talent; it was the choices that he made.
I'm sure you've thought about this a million times, but was there any indication, either on screen or off screen, that he was struggling, that he was a tortured soul during the course of doing the work?
No, we just worked. It was just about, you know, it was an intensely focused period, and that was it. No.
Were you blindsided by what happened?
So, yeah, like everyone else was, yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit to Mad Men. You're now in the... I said that I thanked you, and I truly did thank you for letting Don come back. Can you talk a little bit about Roger Sterling's arc over the course of... I mean, he seemed to have some sort of transcendental experience in one of the great episodes of Mad Men last year, in which everybody was having a kind of drug trip in different layers. Can you talk a little bit about where he's gone since the pilot to where he is going to be in this coming last sort of 2 half seasons?
Well, I mean, I think all of the characters have evolved. I mean, that's part of Matt Weiner, that is, Matt's intention was to tell the story of this decade, this tumultuous decade in the history of this country, where, you know, you're really sort of in the Eisenhower era, still in the beginning of it, and then the 60s, as we know them, sort of bled over into the middle of the 70s, and to sort of tell the story of these people who weren't the movers and shakers of that decade, but like the rest of us, just people who were going to work on the day Kennedy was assassinated, and the day Marilyn Monroe died, and the day, you know, and to sort of peripherally chronicle history while telling the story of these people. So, like everyone in this room, you know, time changes. You change with those times, or you go kicking and screaming and resist changing. And some of the best part of that show is the people you think are going to change don't. And Roger, the character I play, is if you think about where he came from a very privileged background where he didn't get a lot of rejection. He didn't get a lot of negative response. It was a permissive culture, So it makes sense that he would then be the one to go, I'll try that. You know, why not? I mean, he has a cushion of money and position, whereas Don Draper, who's built himself out of thin air, is resistant to change because anybody that scratches the surface of that character is going to find he's afraid the truth. And then everyone in between, you know, I mean, it's just I mean, I asked him that, you know, having made this movie, like, I can't even imagine creating a television series which is, you know, three-dimensional and over a period of years. And he said, well, you have to remember, you do it one show at a time. I mean, you stand back and look at it, and it looks monumental, but one show at a time. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, every time anybody tries to second-guess him or to answer your question, where do I think it's going to go, I have no idea. I've done 7 of the last 14, or we've done 8 or 9 of them now, and I still don't know where it's going to end up.
You're in the middle of shooting it now, or
we've shot the first
break?
7 that are airing now, and then we have 7 more that will air next year, and we're about halfway through those, I think. And I have no idea how it's going to end, and I don't even know where it's going to end. So we get these scripts, you start sniffing around and trying to find them before they get distributed to you, so you can actually work, because we're all I mean, I keep saying you should see these table reads, the cast and then the day play, the visiting cast, and then the executives and the people, writers, and it's like this electric room and it's this page turner for an hour that no one really knows where it's going to go except for those of us that have read it earlier that day. It's pretty remarkable.
We're going to show another clip in just one second, but one more question about Mad Men. Those of us have noticed with Envy and Alarm, you have about 0.0001% body fat, and I'm just And I'm just curious, what kind of regime is this? Just good genes, or what kind of regime, as a result of that you can comfortably appear as you do in certain episodes of the show?
Oh, that's not my choice. You know, I mean, you mean naked? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I'm talking about that, but I'm also talking about the fact that you seem an extraordinarily disciplined person.
No, I'm not. I have some. I like to. I go surfing a lot. That's what I do when I'm not working. So it burns. It burns, I suppose, calories. But no, I have no. I have no. If anybody that knew me was here, you'd hear them laughing at the thought of my discipline. I have a lot of energy. I mean, I made this movie. You know, you have to have a certain amount of like. You know, if you want something to happen, you have to make it happen, because no one else is going to do it for you. So, I do have energy in that sense, and I you know, I'm not a writer, because if I was a writer, I would write every day. But I know what I think is good writing, and I like this book, and so I sat down and said, all right, I'm going to finish this. No, and I mean, you know, no, I have no discipline whatsoever.
Yeah, but surfers
or dietary restrictions.
Surfers are like inhumanly coiled or something when it comes.
They're really not. You should see these guys. There's a lot of fat slobs out there surfing that are extremely talented surfers, and they figured out how to do it so well that they don't even have to paddle. They just get themselves in the right place. The wave comes, they just stand up and go. You're like, look at that guy. He's wearing a diaper, and he's just flying along. I'm not so good at it, so that it takes me more. It takes more work for me.
We're going to show one more clip, and then we're going to open it up. Can you set this clip up? Tell us which one we're going to see. Is this the one in the car? Or?
This is this is early on. They're going to they steal trucks. Turturro, Phil, and this other guy. Usually just for Turturro and John Turturro, Philip Seymour Hoffman, an actor named Dominic Lombardozzi, who plays Sal, who is. Is John Turturro's boss, and he's going along to make sure the thing goes smoothly, because John Turturro owes him some money. And they normally only do it. Phil and John are normally, or I should say, Bird and Mickey are partners, and they do it themselves. One drives to where they're going to go. The truck theft is already worked out. Someone gets paid. They take the truck. They take the meat out of the truck. They sell meat, by the way. They steal the meat out of these long-haul trucks. They cut it up and they sell it in the neighborhood, and the insurance pays for the meat. It's like a scam that they've worked out. And this guy is going along with them, and they're talking about horses because they like to bet on the horses. I think that's the clip.
And also, Bird is heavily in debt to this.
Bird is heavily in debt to the guy in the front seat who isn't saying anything, and it doesn't seem like a lot of fun.
Okay.
In the trailer, they wouldn't let us use the word vaginally. It gets worse after that. What Turturro's response? Anyway.
You know, I had this problem in an NPR on Fresh Air. I was describing Scarlett Johansson in Under the Skin, and they would not let me use the word vagina.
Yeah. Apparently no one will go see a movie with the word vagina in it.
I had to use private parts.
I will.
Which is... Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Who has a question? I'm sure many do. Yes.
Your hat. What does it say, and why are you wearing it?
It says Harbor Surfboards, which is a company in Seal Beach, California, and I'm wearing it because it's the late '60s on Mad Men, and I look like Martha Washington when I'm not in full Roger Sterling mode. So it's an occupational hazard that you see in front of you. So I'm covering it with a hat.
Oh, so we know that Roger grows his hair.
Yes, well, you've already seen it. It happened last year, but and it's already out. That is already out of the bag. Yeah, the sideburns and all that.
Does Hollywood also typecast you as an actor versus a director? And what was your journey from transitioning from one to the other?
Yes, they will. I mean, I know people that were actors that would stop acting and had to stop acting because they couldn't be taken seriously as a director. I probably had some advantage, you know, having been on Mad Men for a little while. When I started, I wanted to direct for a while, but I never found the right scenario because every time I would sign on to some project, a play, a movie, a television show, it was set up. There was already a director. There was the part, and that was it. When Mad Men started, it became apparent early on that it was going to be on for a while. It had sort of hit a nerve, and it was also apparent how good it was from the inside. You know, all the directors, producers, every single person in that studio is amazing. I mean, really talented at what they do. So I thought it would be a great learning ground. So I asked if I could follow some of the directors around without asking officially if I could direct, because I knew that would put pressure on them. They might say no to. So they said, yeah, go ahead, whatever. So I followed a couple of directors, Phil Abraham, who's a cinematographer, because he sort of waited on the side that I didn't know much about. I knew how to work with actors. I didn't know much about the technical part of it. How shot. I mean, I knew from standing around at movie sets for a long time. And I, had my own opinions about how I would do it if given my chance. And then eventually I asked if I could have an episode, and then they thought about it and finally said yes. And then it went well enough, and I've done 5 or 6 of them. But outside of that, if I hadn't written this thing myself and given it to a friend who has a production, I mean, I figured it out. Well, no one was going to send me a script. If I had stopped directing Mad Men and said, okay, to the agency that I'm with, said, okay, let's try to get a directing job, I might have gotten another episode of a television show or something like that. So I didn't want to do that. I mean, the directing television to me is you're facilitating someone else's vision. In this case, Matt Weiner's vision, which is pretty good vision. And I had 0 experience, so I thought, well, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. At the same time, they want you to interpret that script. They give you the script, they tell you what they want, and they expect you, though, to put your fingerprint on it. And so but it really is entirely, and then they take it back, all the footage, and then they recut it, inevitably. So you have to let go of that part of it, too. So I wanted to do my own thing, and I had the script that I've been working on, and so it was sort of a natural, albeit truncated evolution. But again, if you're going to do anything, I mean, if someone sees you as one thing, then it's up to you to find out how to change their vision. Yeah.
So you're also saying that the the auteur in television is the showrunner and the creator.
Absolutely.
Whereas you wanted to be, you wanted to shape this vision,
Yeah.
you know, yourself.
Yeah, in television, the person with all the power is the person who creates the show, not the director. The director changes every week because you have to. The way it works, you have a 10-day shoot. You shoot an episode in 9 days, so you have 9 days to prepare the episode while another one is shooting. So you walk around with the first assistant director and some location scouts. You figure out where to shoot it, and then you figure out how to shoot it without the cinematographer most of the time, and the other producer. You know, you sort of work it out the week prior, and then they finish shooting one episode, and on the same day they start shooting the other one, and then you go start shooting. So the director is just a guy who comes. You know, a lot of times they'll go from Californication to Mad Men to some other show, and it's a grind. That's a difficult way to make a living. But the person with all the say with all the authority is Matthew Weiner, and he's the one there's a writer's room, so they write the scripts and together, but he rewrites everything. And it really, and that's the way it is in television. The creator, the writer, producer, executive producer has all the power.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi.
Two questions, not really related. First question, do you know why there wasn't any audio commentary on the 6th season of Mad Men? It's very important to me. And then also, what's next? Do you have another movie you are thinking about, or do more TV?
I don't know why there isn't any audio. I think we're going to do. We'll do that at some point. There usually is one, which is always fun. Sitting in a room somewhere with John Hamm, bullshitting about those episodes. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I don't know. I have no. I mean, the movie hasn't even. We screened it in L.A. the other night. Premiered it in L.A. We do the same here tonight at the IFC Theater, and then it comes out on Friday at the IFC in New York, and 2 theaters in L.A. And then the weekend after that, all over the country. And I don't know. I mean, if it gets a positive enough response, I suppose maybe I'll get another job. Mad Men's finished in June, so it's really the end of a. I mean, being that my whole directorial career, as it were, has come from Mad Men, and by the time it finishes, it will have been 10 years. My son was 6 years old when we started. He'll be 16 when it finishes airing next year. Kiernan Shipka, the girl who plays Sally Draper, was 6 years, same age. She's been on the show longer in her life than she hasn't been on it. So it's the end. And in June, everything stops, and I have to figure out now what to do. I don't know if I'm looking at trying to find a book. This process, I like this process of finding a book and then adapting my own screenplay from it.
I know you said you've been on the show for a long time, so if you could just talk about what that experience has been and what you would like to see Roger, how your vision of what Roger would end up like on the end or something.
Well, the experience has been unique to... The shows like this don't really come along very often. I've done other television shows, and I've done all kinds of other stuff. It's rare that something comes along that gets this kind of attention, that has this kind of, I don't know, a pedigree, and also, you know, all the company of actors and the whole crew. We've all been together for a long time. We've had children and marriages, and you know, it's been an amazing period of time in that regard. Personally as well, we've all become very close. So it'll be very heavy when it's finished. And also the security of knowing that you have this job that provides you with all these opportunities to go do something else. It takes about 6 months of the year, and then the other 6 months of the year we're free to go do a play or do this, or you know, whatever you can figure out. But that opportunity has probably been given by Mad Men. So I don't know. Maybe it'll take until this time next year when we would normally have started shooting to feel weird about it. But I feel like I'm not quite sure how it'll feel. As far as the character, you know, people ask me that all the time. Is like, how do you want the character to turn out? And I don't really. I've stopped second guessing or trying to figure out, or you know, I never offer up suggestions because he's such a good writer. He has such a specific vision of this thing that anything any of us could cook up wouldn't be anywhere near as good. So you just, you know, you just accept what it is and see where it goes.
So your fate is in the hands of God, sort of like the rest of us mortals.
Yes, God as Matt Weiner. Yes, he'll love that. Yeah.
I have one last question. I've seen you on stage a couple of times in that terrible play Cakewalk back in Boston, and also in the great
no one knows
play
what the hell you're talking
in the great
about.
play Rabbit Hole on Broadway, which was a stupendous performance. Are you? You know, could we see you again on Broadway? Is that something you'd like to do?
Yeah, I would love to do that. I haven't done that in years. Rabbit Hole was the last play I did. That was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago.
2007, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, would love to do that. But you know, I mean, I think you don't get into this business. Well, maybe some people do to play the same part forever. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes. I mean, it's a little, you know, you never really shake that feeling that you'll never work again. You know that, but and people give you that look and they go, really, come on, and then you go, yeah, well, you know, what was it? Morgan Freeman won the. You know, he said I was doing Electric Company last year. You know, and you know, it's a reality. It happens all the time. So I mean, I'm not afraid that I'm never going to work again, and I actually enjoy the idea that I have no idea what's coming.
You know, I know of one staggeringly important critic who loves the movies, so I can. That's so I don't know what the reception is otherwise.
He's talking about himself.
No. If you haven't seen a low-budget movie with Linda Cardellini called Return, a fantastic performance as a kind of OxyContin alcoholic, really scary guy. But your assignment is to rent this movie or see it wherever you can see it. In addition to seeing God's Pocket on Friday, and in addition to watching Mad Men tonight. And I want to thank the Apple Store and you guys and John Slattery for the honor.